Philippi, northern Greece, October 23rd, 42 BC. The morning. The Son of God thinks himself immortal. He is also fighting a very bad cold. Gaius Julius Caesar Octavianus, or Octavian, as he is also known, has been sick for what seems like forever. The fact that his army is camped next to an enormous swamp certainly hasn't helped matters. This young man, who has affected the title Divi Filius, or Son of God, now pulls his cloak tightly around his shoulders and intently studies the cloudless blue sky. Then it has a little note at the bottom here I'm going to read. Octavian, later known as Caesar Augustus, used the term Divi Filius as a propaganda tool for most of his lifetime. Tens of millions of coins were issued bearing his image and that title. One silver denarius, remember Game of Thrones? One silver denarius, issued in 38 BC, even portrayed Julius Caesar in profile. Facing the profile of Octavian, next to Caesar is stamped the name Divine Julius, and next to Octavian, Divine Son. And here's a map of the Battle of Philippi. Hoping for some good news to offset the misery of his illness, above him, two golden eagles that fly in tight circles, with talons extended, engaged in midair combat. The eagle is the symbol of the Roman legion. And to witness these great predators dueling on the eve of his own battle is surely an omen. But an omen for whom? Octavian or the liberators who killed his uncle? Their two powerful armies, consisting of more than 36 legions and 200,000 men combined, face each other across this flat Balkan plain. It is a broad expanse, anchored by low mountains on one side and the vast swamp behind Octavian on the other. Um, let's stop right there and show you the picture. So that's the coin he put himself on. Okay, called himself the Son of God. Okay, doesn't make sense. I didn't, what? But I wanted the eagle. Okay, so if you, a lot of churches, Christian churches across America, they have black and white brand or coloring as their logo, and you'll notice a little eagle in there, and it's tied back to the Roman legion. Okay. Now, if you remember the earlier video about, I just read the book from uh, In Defense of Israel. Okay. Um, there's there's also Nazi symbols that use the eagle a lot because it's Christian. Uh, Adolf Hitler was a practicing Christian, and he also said the reason the Holocaust happened was because God told him to do it, basically. Um, and you can go fact check me with that book was written by John Hagg in Defense of Israel. There are two powerful armies consisting of more than the scrape of steel blades sharpening on stones rings through the air. The legionnaires set aside javelins and arrows as they choose their weapons for today. The fighting promises to be hand-to-hand and personal. So instead of spears, which are less useful in close quarters, the legionnaires slip daggers and swords into sheaths. Hundreds of thousands of hardened legionnaires on both sides of the lines gird their loins by tucking the hems of their cloaks and daggers in their belts so that they won't trip while racing into the combat. Cavalry horses stand patiently while saddles are thrown across their bare backs, knowing all too well that is about to transpire mayhem. Octavian's ally, the hard-drinking general, pedophile, and statesman Mark Antony, oversees the preparations, looking every bit the warrior, barrel-chested, gallant in appearance, and blessed with the thick, muscular thighs that are his one source of vanity. Caesar Augustus, first ruler of the Roman Empire. Now I'm going to stop here. all the Roman emperors, orators, lawyers, poets, they can all be tied back to the Flavian dynasty. And there's some rich academics. I'm not going to call them rich, but there's very smart academic people who have studied the Roman Empire and Christianity and religion. Um, and they are ones that I learned this from, and you can look it up. Just go on just Google the Flavian dynasty, okay, and you can get a ton of information on them. And I urge you to do these academic scholars. They say that the Flavian dynasty, they're the ones who basically wrote most of the Bible. That's their belief, okay, and it's just what I learned. So I'm just kind of regurgitating what I learned. Um, Unlike Octavian, who will remain behind the camp during the fight, Mark Antony relishes the prospect of entering the battlefield. Okay, so I'm going to stop right here. So they talked about denarius in here and God. So I'm going to look those two words up in the Black's Law Dictionary. Okay, 10th edition, Garner's Deluxe. We're going to look up denarius. Okay, here it is right here. Denarius. Heavy book. Denarius or dinarius. Law, Latin, meaning penny. It's Roman law, the principal silver coin used by the Romans. Historically, an English penny, a pence. Third definition, slang, money in general. Also termed in senses 1 and 3, denier, or plural, denari. Then denarius die, that is law Latin, God's penny. Historical, it's earnest money exchanged by contracting parties. So called because the money was originally given either to the church or the poor. The denarius die was not part of the consideration, also termed argentum die si ara, or God's penny. So let's look up God's penny, and then we'll look up ara. Okay. Okay, God gild, money paid or something offered for the service of God. I don't know. Why do you got to pay for it? A payment of money or a gift, for example, land to a church. See, Franklamoy, okay? God's penny, historical, earnest money, a small sum paid on the striking of a bargain, also termed denarius die, earnest penny or God penny. See, denarius die, or ara. It is among the merchants, the merchies, that the giving of earnest first becomes a form which binds both buyer and seller in a contract of sale. To all appearances, this change was not accomplished without the intermediation of a religious idea. All over Western Europe, the earnest becomes known as the God's penny or the Holy Ghost's penny, denarius die. That's from Frederick Pollock and Frederick W. Malin, The History of English Law Before the Time of Edward I. Okay, let's look up Franklamoine and then we'll look up Ara. Franklamoine, law French, or free alms. Free alms? Alms? Free alms. Historical, a spiritual tenure by which a religious institution held land, usually with a general duty to pray for the donor. This tenure differed from the tenure by divine service, which required certain church services, masses, or alms distributions, also spelled Franklamoine. or Francolamoine, also termed alimony, alimony, as alimony, free alms, Liberia Elemosiniana. See spiritual tenure under tenure. Francolamoine, or free alms, was the survival of Anglo-Saxon law and implied simply an indefinite promise to pray for the soul of the donor. But since it was deemed a tenure by which of the land was held, the general doctrine of services was applied. On the other hand, in the case of divine service, which was less frequently met with, the tenant promised a definite number of prayers, a duty which might be enforced in the king's courts. So you had to pay for prayers, okay, and they enforced it in the, the king's court. Frank chase, a free chase, a person's liberty to or right to hunt or log within a certain area. Others holding land within the frank chase area were forbidden from hunting or logging in it. See chase. A frank fee, historical freehold land, land that one held to oneself and one's heirs, exempted from all services except homage, land held other than by ancient demesne or copyhold, a frank firm, an estate in land in soakage, the nature of the fee having been changed from night service by enfoffment for certain yearly services, also spelled frank fermi. A franking machine, 1927, a device used by businesses and other organizations to put a mark on letters and parcels to show that postage has been paid. Let's look up ARA. Oh, here's a allodial. I got to read allodial. Okay, this I've talked about this before. The allodial title. You own nothing in America, no land, no home, no matter if you paid for it outright. Okay, unless you have the allodial title to it. Okay, I got you, America. Allodial, held in absolute ownership of, relating to, or involving an allodium, also spelled allodial. Feudal, allodially. The term allodial originally had no necessary reference to the mode in which the ownership of land had been conferred. It simply meant land held in absolute ownership, not in dependence upon any other body or person in whom proprietary rights were supposed to reside, or to whom the possessor of the land was bound to render service. It would thus properly apply to the land which is in the original settlement had been allotted to individuals, while book land was primarily applicable to land the title to which rested on a formal grant. Before long, however, the words appear to have been used synonymously to express land held in absolute ownership, the subject of free disposition, inter vivos, or by will. Canelm E. Digby, An Introduction to the History of Law and Real Property. Allodial, see allodialist. I gotta see this one. Allodialism, the allodial or freehold system. Allodialist, an allodial landholder, also termed allodial. Allodial title. Okay, you need an allodial. We'll look up that next after we look up our. I just started a new show here. Where are you, Ara? Ara. Latin, earnest, deposit. Roman and civil law, earnest money, money given as evidence of a completed bargain. See denarius die. Also God's penny, also termed arha or are. Okay, let's go look up title. Oh, scutage. A shield, a monetary payment levied by the king on barons as a substitute for some or all of the knights to be supplied to the king by each baron. This payment seems to date from the 12th century, Henry II, 1154 to 1189, having levied 5 scutages in his first 11 years of reign, a fee paid by a tenant-in-chief by knight service in lieu of serving in a war, a tax on a knight's estate to help furnish the army, also termed escuage or shield money, scuddage or shield money. In medieval feudal law, a payment in lieu of military service paid by a tenant in chief of in respect of the service of knights which he owed to the crown. Interesting. We're gonna look up title here. Okay, here the great. While I'm here, I got to show you this one, America. The Great Seal. See how the one I got circled there? This one really caught my eye. Okay, the Great Seal. The official seal of the United States, of which the Secretary of State is the custodian, used to authenticate certain documents issued by the federal government, also termed Seal of the United States. The official seal of a particular state, also termed the Seal of State or State Seal. The official seal of Great Britain. What? Of which the Lord Chancellor is the custodian? Not America? Okay, let's get a title. Title. We're looking up a allodial title. Okay, allodial title. Real property ownership without a duty of service to, control by, or acknowledgement of any superior landlord. Also termed radical title. That means if you have an allodial title to the land, you're the one who actually owns it. If you do not have an allodial title, okay, if your title does not say allodial on it, you do not have full ownership of it. Oh, tithe. I gotta check this one out. Tithe, a tenth of one's income, especially in reference to a religious or charitable gift or obligation. In the second term, historically, a small tax or assessment, especially in the amount of 1/10, also termed tenth, tithe, tithable. A tithe was the right of a rector to a tenth part of the produce of all land in his parish. In some cases, a rector was an individual, while in others the rectory was vested in a monastery, which appointed a vicar to perform the necessary celestial duties vicariously for the monastery. On the dissolution of the monasteries in the reign of Henry VIII, many rectories passed into the royal hands and were granted to laymen. The result was that the right to tithes in many cases passed into lay hands. Like at Vauxons, tithes were deemed to be land in which the various estates could exist. As it had evolved by the 16th century, the Canaan law held that every person owed to his parish church a full tenth of the yearly increase of his crops and his flocks. This was a predial tithe. He, not she, also owed a tenth of the income of his industry, as for instance, that earned from weaving, calculated after deducting legitimate expenses. This was the personal tithe. There was also a mixed tithe covering income that partook of both kinds, such as that derived from making cheese from the milk of cows. A distinction was also drawn between the lesser and greater tithes, a distinction that normally determined which tithes would go to the rector, which to the vicar of each parish. In practice, there was room for disagreement about the class into which particular tithes should be put, and there was considerable local variation in their incidence and destination, so that academic definitions sometimes serve merely as a starting point. The great tithe. A tithe paid in kind and therefore considered more valuable than other tithes. The great tithe is often considered of corn, peas, beans, hay, and wood. Mixed tithes. A tithe consisting of a natural product such as milk or wool, obtained or cultivated by human effort. Corn, peas, and hay ain't natural. A second species of incorporeal hereditaments is that of tithes. The first species being usually called predial, as of corn, grass, hops, and wood. The second mixed, as of wool, milk, pigs, etc., consisting of natural products, but nurtured and preserved in part by the care of man. And of these, the tenth must be paid in gross. The third is personal, as of manual occupations, trades, fisheries, and the like. and of these only the tenth part of the clear gains and profits is due. That's from William Blackstone, Commentaries on the Laws of England. Personal tithe, a tithe of profits from manual occupations or trades. Predial tithe, a tithe of crops such as corn, also spelled predial tithe. And then we have the vicarial tithe, a small tithe payable to a vicar. A tithe of adjustment, a church levied charge on grazing land. The tithe was paid by the occupier of the land rather than the person whose cattle graze on the land. See adjustment. Tithing. See decennary. Let's check that one out. I never heard that one. Decennary. Where are you, decennary? Oh, decennary. Latin, decina, a tithing. A town or district consisting of 10 freeholding families. A freeholder of the decennary, a decennarius, was bound by a frank pledge to produce any wrongdoer living in the decennary, also spelled incorrectly, decennary, also termed decina, tithing. Cf. Frankenpledge. The civil division of the territory of England is into counties, of those counties into hundreds, of those hundreds into tithings or towns, which division, as it now stands, seems to owe its original to King Alfred, who, to prevent the rapines and disorders which formerly prevailed in the realm, instituted tithings, so called from the Saxon because 10 freeholders, with their families, compose one. These all dwelt together, and, and were sureties or free pledges to the king for the good behavior of each other, and, in any offence was committed into their district, they were bound to have the offender forthcoming, and therefore actually no man was suffered to abide in England above 40 days, unless he enrolled in some tithing of decennary. I did not know that. So I'm going to go over the word, the root of American, and why they call us Americans. Okay, it's not nice. We're a fee or fine paid to another at the mercy of the French king. Broke my heart when I found this out, but we can break the seal. Love you, America. Have a good day. President Andrew Comboy.org, PresidentUniverse.com, Miller Madison Clark Quinn. Your daddy is just, he's on the spin. He's learning a lot, but can't wait to see you. I miss you, girls. Love you.